Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
How amazing would it be if you could practice because you want to, not because you have to? Learn how to improve your cash flow and increase your passive income now. Go to moneyripples.com or find their podcast, The Chris Miles Money Show, to learn more. All right, TCP listeners, I have an incredible guest today, and that is actually Dr. Monique Andrews. Dr. Mo, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Excited to chat with you as always, Dr. Ed.
I know, right? I mean, it's been a long time. It feels like it's been a long time. How long has it been since? Well, actually, no, it hasn't been. We met up in Colorado.
Oh yeah, that's right. But I don't think we've done a podcast in a while.
It's been a while for that. Yeah. But I love like the ability to kind of see where this conversation is going to go for docs. And one of the things, and talking about value, right, is I think, it's important that we talk about our values. And that was kind of our pre-show chat is, how your values determine values determination, but also your values determine where you're actually going to end up in life. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the journey you've had over the last year or so? Start with that.
Yeah. Well, I'll even maybe go back a little bit further and talk about when we first met, which is almost 3 years ago. I remember we were just leaving California, heading back to Canada, and you were having a mastermind in Victoria, BC. And I reached out, and Tamara and I came into your event, and that started a whole brand new online journey for us, which was, I remember we had to get up and introduce ourselves. And I remember getting up and saying, I have no idea what I'm doing in the online world. And, in all modesty, I'm about 180 degrees opposite to that at this point, some 3 years later. And, we certainly couldn't have done that without your instruction and mentorship, certainly in those, beginning year. And now we're in a totally different place where we're almost entirely online. What a ride.
Yeah. I love it too. And I've told you this before is, yourself and Dr. Mac, best students I ever had. Cause I got to tell you, you just consumed everything. I can tell your academics and, graduated I would say
summa cum laude, right?
Yeah. Like 4.0 GPA, in 7 months, you had a PhD in online business and you could teach this stuff now. But what would you say, in terms of if we take that story and where you were, were your values that determined where you were going inside of your life and your business different then than they are today?
No, I would say, for us, the main purpose was we wanted to make our lives of benefit to others. We have this thing that we talk about, easing the path for others. And, it was interesting. I think there's no mistakes because right at the point where we're like, crap, we need to create a new life. We created the Prana Foundation, and we knew at that time, going online probably was a great idea. And lo and behold, a few months later, the whole world was online because of, COVID. And so that was wow, there couldn't have been a better time.
Yeah.
And so there's no mistakes, right? And I think that it has allowed us to continue to see that mission of making our life of benefit to others, easing the path for others, available and present in our mind and our services and everything that we created through the foundation.
What's your highest value?
Freedom.
So how is this online non-location dependent life and business that you've been able to create and education and impact you've been able to create, how does that feed into that first highest value?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, right? Because, we talk all the time. You're the OG of laptop lifestyle.
Supposedly, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what has been created for us. And it's interesting because, like any value, it has two sides, right? Every coin has two sides. And with freedom, it requires discipline. You cannot create the level of freedom that I have. If I get up in the morning now and, barring a meeting or a class or whatever, I'm like, what do I want to do today? There are certain things obviously that need to get done, but on any given day, if I don't have something scheduled, and I don't have stuff scheduled every day, I can be like, screw it. I don't feel like working today. I'm going to go play. But I can only do that because there's been a high level of discipline in the way that Mac and I approach our life. You can't, freedom doesn't come without, there has to be discipline in other areas. And so, I think we've learned a lot, and it's a balancing act to create that freedom.
I love that word discipline, because I used to think that all you needed to be successful in business, and we'll just say business or online or practice, or I think in anything, was motivation. Like you need a sufficient motivation to be successful. And I think that's true, but I think it's actually discipline. I think you need the discipline first, and then you can be motivated after that.
Yeah, because motivation without discipline is like sizzle without steak. Yeah. What are you going to eat at the end of the day? Like, there's lots of people very passionate out there, but if you don't have the discipline and a skill set to match that, it can be very exciting, but it's not going to last long.
Yeah. I mean, I get up, like discipline is what makes me get up at 6 a.m. and do the work before the kids get up and I get them off to school, right? That's the discipline. And, of course you want to be motivated. You want to help a lot of people and all of those, inspired. What do you think the key is though? Like, I mean, for you to stay disciplined, because like being disciplined is one thing, but staying disciplined, like actually doing something consistently, what's the secret like that you found?
That's an interesting question. I think, you're either born with discipline and you learn it. And I'll be really honest, I wasn't born with discipline. What's that? The idea, I said this once and I'll never forget it. The first 40 years of childhood are the hardest. I had to learn to be disciplined because I learned that was, like we said, it's a requirement. Otherwise, it's so easy to get distracted in life. And learning that discipline is a requirement for freedom, I think is what, seeing the interrelationship between those two really sealed the deal for me. It's a choice. It's the difference between choosing something and knowing that the only way to translate any vision you have into reality versus, oh, I'm kind of interested in that. When you're committed to something, then you realize that the only way you're going to get there is by doing whatever it takes, as opposed to, just having a random interest. And so discipline, I think, comes from the learned knowledge that if you're not committed at that soul level, it's not going to happen. And that means it's going to take sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, it's, for me, it's also the reward at the end that I do see the results and the reward of what I do. And it's outside of myself. It's like people like you, I see like, oh my God, like I'm so grateful and honored to have worked with you and Mac, and like to see how many people, like it's that ripple effect of how many people you've been able to, doctors specifically, how many people you've been able to transform their lives. Because like, and I made this note here, and I have to be so careful because I know this is going to be on social. It's going to be on iTunes, and I'm having stuff pulled now. I'll just say this guy who runs our country, his name is JT. So he was on the news the other day, and he's kind of saying, hey, look, if not enough people get the, updates that they're going to be masking, mandating and things like that. And it was almost like right away, I felt like traumatized, like fear. Right. And I have to think, because I have to think that what does that feel like for a lot of other people who maybe don't realize, like they don't realize that it's really just fear, like it's just threats.
I think anytime we are faced, we could talk about any stressor in general, right?
Well, trauma to your nervous system, right?
Yep. Your brain at all times, one of the main jobs of your brain is to determine, probably the most important job of your brain from a survival perspective is to determine, am I safe? Right here, right now, am I safe? Is this environment safe? Is this person safe? And so that's what it's seeking. And we're actually hardwired to see the negative. Our brains are sort of like Velcro for negative and Teflon for the positive. And so what happens is we see the danger because we want to be prepared. We want to make sure that we survive. And any stressor, perceived or real, creates this cascade of effect in the body. And so what we've all experienced in the last 3 years is a state of alarm, a state of threat, a state of feeling unsafe. So everybody's in this sympathetic fight or flight.
Yeah. We're all in autonomic, right? It's like just,
regardless of your perspective.
How would Seth Godin, Gary Vaynerchuk, and Tim Ferriss create a chiropractic practice? The answer is The Payday Practice, a new book by Dr. Jeff Langmaid and Dr. Jason Deitch. The Payday Practice is the perfect solution for any chiropractic practice looking to generate monthly recurring revenue. This book provides a step-by-step process that is easy to follow and guaranteed to get results. Get your free copy today at thepaydaypractice.com. Don't wait, this offer won't last forever. The Payday Practice, recurring practice revenue the easy way. Head over to thepaydaypractice.com for your free copy now. So, I mean, you have a new program that you're launching, and I think if I'm right, it's actually launched or in the process, which is trauma-informed practice. So when we talk about trauma-informed practice, it's about helping doctors understand how people who have been traumatized, right? Could that include even like this, traumatization, subconscious from the last 2 years?
Yeah. Not everything is the big T trauma, sexual abuse, war, all of the little T's add up. And many times, so look, here's the thing. There's not a single person alive that hasn't had trauma in their life. Yeah. We've all experienced some crap in our childhood that's created an imprint in our bodies. And the way that we process trauma is, again, we drop into that fight or flight. So we're not using our thinking mind. So trauma exists in our body, in our emotions, not as an explicit conscious narrative memory. It actually sits in our body as an implicit memory. And so when we get re-triggered, it comes back up that way through a somatic emotional experience. It's not a memory in your mind, in your narrative mind. And so we don't always recognize that that's being re-triggered and that the responses that we have could be based on some trauma that we had in our childhood. Yeah. And so our new workshop, which is open to everybody, it's not just for chiropractors, which is called Trauma Informed Practice, is to help people understand from a trauma-informed perspective where everybody's at and to find ways and processes, especially for practitioners, to acknowledge that. It confounds me to think that we all go to school as chiropractors, as psychologists, whatever, and we don't learn about trauma. And everybody's had it. It's insane, especially as a chiropractor, you're putting your hands on people. Think about people that have had severe physical abuse trauma, which is, 40% of women apparently, and maybe even greater. What kind of impact that can have? That's not a verbal thing that they can discuss. So,
and so like if docs who are listening right now, they want to check out the trauma-informed practice, they can head to pranafoundation.org.
Pranafound.org, pranafound.org/educational. You can also, it's on my Instagram at Dr. Monique Andrews, on my Facebook, all over the place.
Let me ask you about that.
Yeah.
I was checking your Instagram the other day. So what was it that shifted for you on Instagram to be like, because you have a pretty big following now, and it's not just chiropractors. So what was it that changed? Was it your message? Was it how you presented yourself? Was it just your skill set of like how to post? What was it that changed for you?
I certainly was certainly a learning curve, but I talk a lot about the vagus nerve And so a lot of, people have seen my Mo Monday posts where generally it's a chiropractic centric post, something to do about neuroscience. And so I've been starting to talk about vagus nerve and getting invitations outside of the chiropractic world to talk about things like polyvagal, et cetera. So I made this one short reel. It was crappy, I thought. I think it was 44 seconds. And it's literally me like pointing to my ear saying, this is the best place to stimulate your vagus. And then just some information. And I went from, I think, 7,000 Instagram followers to like 20,000 in 3 days. And I was just flooded with people saying, where can we find a polyvagal chiropractor? And literally I was 2 weeks responding to all these messages. And I'm like, this is crazy. And actually from that, we created a directory, a searchable database called the Preferred Polyvagal Informed Practitioner. It's not just for chiropractors either. And that now has hundreds of practitioners getting referrals from people all over the world. And that's free for anybody that takes our polyvagal courses can be a part of this searchable database. And that blew up my Instagram. That particular reel got like, I don't know, like 1.5 million views or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, do you find, like, when we look at Facebook and we look at Instagram, and you know where we're going with this in a second, but which one do you feel is like more powerful in terms of a social channel, or is it really just dependent, I guess, on who you're speaking to?
I think it depends. Instagram is a little bit more impersonal, maybe hands off. Mm-hmm. And it certainly has a younger audience, that sort of 18 to 35 or whatever it is ranges. And then I think Facebook is a little bit more personal. And I think maybe it's directed a little bit more towards the Gen X. I mean, of course, there's all ages on there, but I find that my audience on there tends to be a little bit older. I don't know if that's the way it is for everybody, but yeah. And the way I post is a little bit different. Had a little trouble recently with the post. Banned again for no apparent reason. No reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was locked out for a month once. I mean, I think maybe a lot of people who might be listening to this have experienced something very similar. So you feel like most of the people who are following you, or the messages, the more impact you get is actually over on Instagram. Have you ever considered doing anything else like TikTok, or are you on TikTok? And
I'm not on TikTok. You know what? Here's the thing. I don't want to spend my whole life on social media. And so I'm just like, I don't spend hours on there scrolling. I post my message because I'm trying to live my life of benefit to others. And so that I kind of share things that I think bring value. Sometimes I share personal stuff, but I haven't carved out more time still to go onto another social media platform. And everybody has been raving about TikTok, and I just haven't done it. It's mostly a time thing, and just like, I don't know, convince me otherwise.
Well, I mean, I can't even go on there anymore. Like TikTok, it's almost, I feel embarrassed for some
me too. People. I see all the dancing around and scantily dressed people pointing at me. I'm like, I'm just not going to do that stuff. Yeah. Most of the reels I post are like science-based. It's like me talking or something. I don't do the, dancing around thing. I just can't. No.
Yeah. I mean, and that's all I post now too, is on Instagram. I'll post reels. Like I had a reel that's had like 500,000 views and 21,000 likes, and, grown, I know from that one, it's really helped grow my following. Yeah. But it's all based around one common theme, which is freedom lifestyle. It's around mostly adventure, right? Which is one of my highest values.
Yeah. And I think that's the key. When you find what your audience is on Instagram, that's how you keep feeding it. And it's been interesting. It's been fun. I'm a creator. And so I actually love creating content for Instagram, especially. I don't know why. I think I've got more traction there. It's more fun for me. Although, I still try and provide a lot of value on Facebook when they're not kicking me off for nothing.
So, I mean, you're in a little bit of a different place in your life right now, both you and Dr. Mack. And so, like, you've gone from Victoria, you were in Oakland for a while, Georgia, right? Costa Rica, so this freedom lifestyle that you've been able to create for yourself. You said it's kind of like a two, it's like a coin, right? I mean, you got both sides of the coin. So what is the piece of it that you feel is like, or what has it helped you realize, maybe something that has helped you realize inside of your life that you're looking for?
Yeah, what's really interesting is, I mean, we could literally be doing this from anywhere. I mean, we have to show up in Costa Rica a couple times a year because that's where we run our retreats from. And we could be doing it from anywhere. And you really start to learn what is important in your life. And we've been kind of nomadic for the last year. And we're ready to put down roots again. And we really feel that, friends and family, this idea of home. And for Tamara and I, it's been, as long as we have each other, we're home. And, but we're sort of feeling the call to be surrounded again by our people. And so I would say, again, it's like freedom it's a great servant and a terrible master.
I feel like freedom is only appreciated when you have something, like when you do have a place that you are based from, that you can, like a home base, right? Like you can, so tomorrow I'm going to go to the mountains and go for a hike, but I always love the feeling of when I come home, even though I can do those things, or I can take off. I'm going to go live on a houseboat for a week next week in Vancouver. Like when I come home, I love that feeling of when I walk in the door and I go, wow, it's nice to be home.
Yeah. So we're missing that. And so we're looking to put some roots down again pretty soon here now. Yeah.
So if for doctors who are learning or listening and, they've learned a lot about, vagus, or what's one of the most important things that they should learn, that they should implement and learn right now as a skill set to include in their practice, that you and Dr. Mack are teaching right now?
Yeah, I would say take our polyvagal classes.
I would.
The impact that we've been having is incredible. People take the courses and they're blown away by the impact that they have on their patients, because it allows you to actually, we know from embodied neuroscience that we can have a much more profound impacts for the body. Chiropractors have also known it. And what this does, like laying over this polyvagal lens in your practice, actually gives you a language and a system and a way to communicate to your patients that they get. I think for a long time as chiropractors, we've said, we impact the nervous system. And then we kind of fail at showing how that is. And literally what polyvagal does is it shows you like, this is, these are the different neural platforms that you present in: fight or flight, rest and digest, freeze or fawn. What does that look like? And different people show up differently, and understanding what that looks like in a very, like, you can easily say, okay, this person is much more dominant in a sympathetic state, and then have strategies to more quickly get them out of there. And it doesn't add on some big amount of time to your visit, right? You can literally give your patients some very simple exercises to do while they're waiting in your reception. Do the basic polyvagal exercise, do the polyvagal breathing. And you can make it as simple or as evolved as you want. Like Mac gets really deep into some of the assessment tools, and you can take it as far as you want in your practice. But it's just been really fun to see the profound impact that it's having. And so I encourage docs to take a look, go over to my Instagram, watch some of the reels that are on there, and read some of my Mo Monday posts and see what the conversation about Vegas is doing.
Love it. And I mean, we've come so far from bone on nerve. I can't even, I after 14 years of practice, and then I've been out for, I can't believe I've been out for 7 years now. Like it's just, our profession has just evolved so much from that structure to more towards the actual impact of the nervous system.
And you don't need to be a functional neurologist to talk about neurology, to assess and approach the body from a neurological perspective. I mean, even if we've been talking about the vagus, it literally sits on the anterior aspect of the TP of Atlas. Are we impacting it with the chiropractic adjustment? Absolutely. Even if you never added any polyvagal work into your practice, your ability to just talk about your impact on the autonomic nervous system is huge, right? Spoiler alert, we can live without our arms and legs, but we can't live without our organs. Like, so many chiropractors in their practice are still lateral C spine, lumbar, C spine, lumbar spine, and then they do orthoneuros in the arms and legs. Well, great. And then you're telling people about how you're impacting their heart and lungs and gonads, but you're not showing them. I mean, just let's shift the dialogue away from pain and musculoskeletal to what's actually happening, the impact we're having on the nervous system.
Love it. And so you probably were expecting this question, and everyone gets this question on TCP. So we're going to put you in the TCP time machine, and we're going to send you back to a younger version of yourself. And this is right after you actually, I'm going to give you like a time. This is like right after you moved to Victoria, BC. Okay. So you meet that younger self, like that person in Victoria, the person that you are on that day, that given time, with all the experience and knowledge that you've gained over the last couple of years. What would you say to that younger self?
Trust the process. Anything is possible. I mean, things have happened in the last 3 years I can't even imagine. I mean, like coming back to the beginning of our conversation, I remember introducing myself at that very first mastermind and being like, I have no idea what I'm doing in the online world. And now I'm feeling like maybe I do have a PhD. Anything is possible, and to just trust it and surround yourself by people who know what they're doing. We need great mentors. Doing it alone is not required. In fact, it's that.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember where I heard this, but I'm going to totally butcher this, but there's a difference between people who are just simply learners and elite learners. And elite learners are open to the discomfort. Like they bless the discomfort and the pain in the process. But the same things that were uncomfortable back then aren't as uncomfortable now, because they're maybe a habit or something, a skill set, something you learned. But so many people are afraid of not, of the uncomfortableness of the not knowing, and trust. And I love that, trust the process.
Well, and I think sometimes too, Ed, like people, because sometimes we make it look easy, they think, oh, it doesn't look that hard. And it goes back to our conversation about freedom and discipline. There are hard pieces, and interest doesn't mean you have skill either. I would say that. I see a lot of people in the, online realm who are like, just because you're interested in something, it doesn't make you an expert. And if you want to dive in, then get help.
Yeah, I love it. So who are you following right now? Like who's your favorite author, personality online, podcast?
Oh, yes. So Gabor Mate just released a new book, The Myth of Normal. I'm a big fan. So that always, anything in that realm of embodied neuroscience, but his new book is really great. And it really speaks to a lot of the values that we have in, alternative healthcare, chiropractors, you name it. Yeah.
His publicist, they had actually accepted to be on this show.
No way.
Yeah. However, Deepak Chopra did this too. They accepted, they were excited about it. And then, I think he was on Joe Rogan. So I think he's blown up, but he's Canadian. I love his. Yeah.
They did a great job with marketing the new book. He's blown it up. Has sort of aligned with JT very recently, which is kind of irritates me a little bit. It doesn't take away from the great work that he's done in the realm of trauma and embodied neuroscience.
Yeah, no, so many great, so much. There's so many inspiring people who are now actually, I feel like some of his philosophy is almost based out of, the foundation of chiropractic, our philosophy.
I think we have a lot of shared values.
Yeah.
The other person that I've followed diligently has been, my own mentor for decades now is Pema Chodron. And she just wrote a new book as well. It's called how we live is how we die. It's fantastic. One of my faves.
Love it. So listeners, you can actually head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com and we'll have a webpage dedicated to our discussion with Dr. Mo today. Make sure you head over to pranafound.org. So pranafound.org/educational. And if you want, you can actually go ahead and if you're on your mobile, go ahead and open up the show notes. You'll see that link right there in your show notes and you can link through right now on your mobile. Dr. Mo, just amazing. I love catching up. We got to do this more often, you know, I felt like someone asked, I was actually with a client this morning and they asked about you. They don't, you don't know them, but, and they said, what are they up to? And I go, I have no idea. I'm not sure. So I love it being able to how the universe brought us together, like right away after that conversation. Now I get to catch up and everyone else does too.
Oh, thanks, Ed. Love and appreciate you.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Chiropractic Philanthropist.